Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWUS. We got NBA Tuesday, 9 games on the board. Going to go through every single one of them. Haven't made a video in a few days, so to recap the last few days, things have been going well for the NBA. I went 3-1 on Saturday. College basketball Saturday didn't go so well, but NBA Saturday went well. Then I went, what did I go Sunday? I think I went 3-1 on Sunday. I'll put it on the screen. I forget off the top of my head. I think I went 3-1 on Sunday. Yes, I did. I went 3-1 on Sunday. My top two bets hit. So 6-2 in the NBA over the weekend. And then tonight I went 1-1. I did bet the Warriors over a bit heavier. So I ended up losing a few dollars tonight. But as a whole, last few days, NBA have been going well. Hopefully that continues. 9 games on Tuesday night. Let's do it. I mean, is Cooper Rush worth 2.5 points? I would hope Quinn Ewers put up a decent stat line against Arizona State. If he didn't, we have a real problem.
You can say the same thing about Creighton. Okay, they had the one good game against Kansas at home.
When Toast talks about the kicking market, it's like some earth is flat shit. Andy, true or false, this is going to be a dog walking.
Dog walking. This is my dog walking of the day. I think it's going to be very ugly. Dog walking. I think this is going to be ugly.
Hey, get the sauce. First up, we got Toronto on the road in Orlando here. Injuries on the Raptors side. Still no Brandon Ingram. Waiting for him to make his debut with the team. Grady Dick is also on the report. He's listed as questionable on the Orlando side. Same as it has been. Jalen Suggs is ruled out. He's actually out indefinitely. Other than that, Orlando should be good to go for this one.
Update. So Grady Dick's actually been ruled out of this game since I recorded that. So no Grady Dick as well.
So obviously these two teams just played the other night. As far as how they match up on paper, everything kind of points towards Orlando here. The Raptors like to get out in transition. They're 4th in transition frequency. Orlando's a top 10 defense against transition, so that should be a good matchup for the Magic defensively. Toronto also attacks the paint a lot. They're 1st in paint frequency. Orlando, a top 5 defensive efficiency in the paint. So another solid matchup for the Magic defensively. On the other side of the court, Orlando's offense also attacks the paint a lot. They're 6th in paint frequency in the last 10 games. Toronto, dead last in defensive efficiency in the paint the last 10 games. I have this handicapped at 111.3 to 99.4. So why didn't I take Orlando in the first matchup? Because look at these crazy-ass numbers that support Toronto here. The Raptors, 13-3 against the spread versus bottom 10 offenses. The Raptors, 10-3 against the spread against top 10 defenses. The Raptors, 10-5 against the spread versus bottom 10 in pace. So against top 10 defenses, bottom 10 pace, bottom 10 offenses. So slow-paced defensive teams that struggle to score. That's exactly Orlando. Betting Toronto against those teams has been extremely profitable. Also, the Raptors against teams that don't get out in transition, bottom 10 in transition frequency, 10-4 against the spread. The Magic almost never get out in transition. The Raptors are 8-1 against the spread against top 5 defenses in 3-point frequency. So against defenses that put a ton of pressure on the perimeter, that don't let their opponents get 3-point shots off like the Magic do, Toronto 8-1 against the spread versus the top 5. So that's why, even though I personally have Orlando as a double-digit favorite here, that's why I didn't take the matchup in the game the other night. I took the under. Here's why I took the under. The Magic, 9-15 to the under against bottom 10 teams in pace. The Raptors have been slowing it down recently. They're 26th in pace in their last 10 games. Toronto also has problems with turnovers. They're 22nd in turnover rate in their last 10 games. Orlando, 6-18 to the under against bottom 10 offenses and turnover rate. I already mentioned earlier how Toronto attacks the paint a lot. They're 1st in the NBA in shot frequency in the paint. Orlando, 2-11 to the under against teams in the top 5 of paint frequency. 4-16 to the under against teams in the top 10. So against teams like Toronto, the under is cashing out an extreme rate in these Magic games. So
had to redo this screenshot now that Grady Dick's not going to be in the lineup. I have it 110.6 for Orlando, 99.5 for Toronto, but I can't get there with Orlando. The only thing I'd consider here is going right back to the under. It worked for me last time. I got a 211.5. Best I'm seeing is 209 right now. I'm not mad at another under here. Next.
Houston is on the road in Indiana. The Rockets injury report is currently a mystery. They're on a back-to-back, and there were a ton of pieces listed as questionable. So we do not know who's going to be playing here for Houston. On the Indiana side, they might be getting Mathurin back. He's listed as questionable. He's missed the last few games. Other than that, Pacers should be in pretty good shape here. So as far as this matchup, if you listen to yesterday's live stream, or if you're in the Discord, I mentioned a couple nights ago that I liked Houston in this matchup. Here's why. We know no one's going to want to bet Houston here. The Rockets really haven't looked all that great. Indiana looks pretty good. Rockets are on a back-to-back. Pacers at home, rested. I mean, no one's going to want to bet the Rockets here. Here's why I actually like the matchup for Houston here. So what do we know about this Rockets team? Well, they're a great defense in transition. That dates back to last year. I believe they were first or second in the NBA in defensive efficiency in transition last year. It's the same thing this year. Not quite as elite, but this is a top 10 defense against the fast break. This is not a team that's going to let you go out and run on them. So teams that get out in transition often, teams that like to run a fast pace, Houston's usually a solid bet in those types of spots. This season, they're 16-5 against the spread, against the top 10 teams in terms of pace. So fast-paced teams, Houston's been very profitable to bet on in those games. Also, they're 15-8 against the spread versus the top 10 in transition frequency. So teams that get out and run, probably a lot of the same games there, 15-8 against the spread. So again, Houston's been very profitable to bet in these kinds of matchups. The teams that the Rockets tend to struggle with are slower paced teams that can rebound. That is not Indiana. In fact, in the last 10 games, the Pacers are bottom 10 in the NBA in both offensive rebounding rate and defensive rebounding rate. Houston on the season, 11-5 against the spread against the bottom 10 teams in offensive rebounding rate, 16-10 against the spread against the bottom 10 teams in defensive rebounding rate. So another angle I like there for the Rockets, because the Pacers are most definitely not an elite rebounding team. Another angle I like for Houston here is this Pacers offense has become more and more reliant on jump shots, which is not really the Pacers offense we remember from last year, even the beginning of this year. If you remember, the Pacers loved to attack the basket last year. Rewind back to October, November, the Pacers were attacking the basket. That's not what we've been seeing from Indiana. I mean, the last 5 games, the last 10 games, Pacers are taking a lot of three-point shots, and they're making them. Indiana's been a great three-point shooting team recently. That plays directly into the strength of this Rockets defense. In fact, on the season, you can make the argument that Houston has the best three-point defense in the NBA. In the last 10 games, they're second in frequency, second in efficiency against the three-point shot. So there's another angle I like for Houston here. On the season, Houston's 16-6 against the spread against top 10 three-point shooting teams. All right, so this line finally opened up, and the Pacers are laying 3.5, 4. I gotta say, I'm disappointed. I recorded that, what you just watched, I recorded that hours ago, waiting for this line to open. I thought we were going to get a 7. This line opening up, Pacers -4, makes me think that the market was seeing this one the exact same way I was seeing it. I was gonna hammer Rockets +7 at 3.5, 4. When they're on a back-to-back, are you crazy? So, I mean, I think the Rockets win the game. So, my pick is still Houston. It's just, I'm a little disappointed because I thought we were going to get a great number here. So, Rockets +4 next. Golden State on the road in New York. Obviously, Golden State's on a back-to-back, so we don't have an injury report for them yet. I would imagine Kuminga's still going to be out, although his projected return date was sometime in the near future. So I think Kuminga is going to be back soon. I doubt he's back for this game. So no injury report yet for Golden State. On the Knicks side, we got Karl Anthony Towns listed as questionable. Mitchell Robinson's back, which is huge for the Knicks. Huge for the Knicks defensively. But Karl Anthony Towns has been added to the report. He's listed as questionable. So let's get into this one, and we'll start with Steph Curry in Madison Square Garden. People always ask, LeBron and MSG, Steph Curry at MSG. He's actually only played 3 games here at Madison Square Garden in the last 5 years. He's averaging 30 points per game, 41.8% from the floor, over 48% from 3. So he has played well here at Madison Square Garden, but like I said, just 3 games in the last 5 years. But where we really need to start for this one, and I'm sure you've heard it talked about, a lot of Knicks haters have been chirping this all year, the Knicks have not been great against good teams, and unfortunately, I have to admit that is true. On the season, 2-7 against the spread against top 5 rated offenses, 3-8 against the spread against top 5 rated defenses. In the last 10 games, Golden State is both. They're 4th offensively, 3rd defensively, or something like that. So in the last 10 games, Golden State is both a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense. Not a good start there for New York. That being said, there are a couple things I like here for the Knicks defensively, which is not something we've said recently. The Knicks defense has not received a lot of praises, nor have they deserved a lot of praises. I will say, though, Golden State is not a pick and roll team. on the season, 27th in frequency, 21st in efficiency. So we're not going to see a lot of pick and rolls here from Golden State. And the reason I'm bringing that up, that's been the glaring weakness of the Knicks defensively. I mean, they're one of the worst defenses in the NBA against the pick and roll. Against teams that don't run the pick and roll, bottom 10 in pick and roll frequency, the Knicks are 14-2 straight up this year. So maybe that's not a big deal. Maybe it is, but you definitely like to see it if you plan on betting New York here. They've been very, very good against these offenses that don't run a lot of pick and rolls. Golden State rarely runs the pick and roll. But honestly, I think the bigger factor for New York here is the defense on the perimeter is finally coming back, or at least it seems to be coming back. They're finally starting to look like a Tom Thibodeau coach team. If you remember, I mean, throughout Tom Thibodeau's tenure with the Knicks, they've had a really good perimeter defense. They've always been a top 5 defense against the three-point shot. That has not been the case as of late. They've really struggled against the three, but in the last 5 games, they're back to being a top 10 defense against the three-point shot. Obviously, that's huge when you're about to play Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. Maybe it's having a healthy OG Anunoby back on the floor. Maybe it's having a healthy Mitchell Robinson underneath the basket. They don't have to collapse as much. Who knows what the exact reasons are, but looking like the Knicks are back to being a defense we can trust on the perimeter, which is going to come in handy against the Warriors. As far as betting this game, I mean, I don't know how much interest I have in it right now. Like I said, Towns being questionable, that's definitely tough. With Towns on the floor, I have the Knicks by 3 at home in this one. Maybe subtract a point for Golden State being on a back-to-back. If you take Towns off, I have the Knicks by 1, maybe 1.5. So I don't know. As of right now, this is probably just a pass for me. Milwaukee on the road in Atlanta. Injuries on the Bucks side. Looks like we're not going to see Kyle Kuzma in this one. He's listed as doubtful. Still no Bobby Portis for the Bucks either. On the Hawks side, we got Trae Young on the report. He's listed as probable. Still no Krejci, still no Niang for the Hawks. Other than that, Hawks should be good to go. All right, so I'll start with the weird one here. Check this out. So what do we know about this Hawks team? Super fast pace, right? In the last 10 games, they're first in the NBA in pace. Nobody's been running a faster pace than the Hawks in the last 10 games. So you would think against a Bucks team we know can score points, we're going to see a super high scoring game. I mean, the total's up at 243.5, makes sense. Check this out though. The Bucks this year against top 5 teams in pace, so against the fastest paced teams in the NBA, 3-10 to the under. So maybe this Milwaukee team has a pattern of slowing these fast-paced teams down, and we've actually seen it against the Hawks 3 times this year. All 3 Bucks-Hawks games this year have stayed under the total. Maybe we shouldn't read too much into that. It's only a 13-game sample size, but seems like the Bucks have a pattern of slowing these fast-paced teams down. Now, before we match these 2 teams up on the court, we got to mention that Atlanta's on a back-to-back. On the season, though, they're 6-6 straight up, 6-6 against the spread on 0 days rest. So I'm not sure how much that shows us. We do have to mention they are on a back-to-back, though. Now, as far as offense versus defense, right off the bat, we know Milwaukee's going to score points in this game. Remember, I've talked about this several times. The Bucks' offensive numbers as of late, a little bit skewed. Giannis missed a chunk of games. Lillard was banged up. We haven't seen many games where both Giannis and Lillard were on the floor at the same time. We've seen so many where at least one were missing. If you just isolate it to just the game, just the Bucks games where both Giannis and Lillard were on the floor, this offense is pretty damn reliable. Up against a Hawks defense that's struggling to make stops. They're 23rd in defensive efficiency in their last 10 games, 27th in their last 5. I mean, they're on a back-to-back too. Pretty safe to say we can hang our hats on Milwaukee scoring points in this one. Now, when we get to the other side of the court, this is where I really don't know what to expect. The Hawks offense against the Bucks defense. Atlanta's been taking a ton of shots on the interior. In the last 10 games, they're second in shot frequency in the paint, second in the NBA. So they've been taking it to the interior a lot. Historically, I trust this Bucks interior defense. Brook Lopez, Giannis, even Bobby Portis, even though he's out. The numbers don't really show it in the last 10 games, but remember, Giannis just came back, I think 5 or 6 games ago. So part of me expects the Bucks' defensive numbers on the interior to start improving. I mean, maybe not having Bobby Portis affects it. I'm not really sure. So, I mean, in my opinion, that entire matchup on that side, the Hawks offense against the Bucks defense, kind of a question mark for me. The angle I feel most comfortable with in this one is I think Milwaukee's offense should score pretty efficiently against the Hawks defense. So, I mean, I guess a Milwaukee team total over, but it's super high. And like I said earlier, we've seen 3 low-scoring games when the Bucks and Hawks have played. So I really don't know. Even if I shade the handicap towards Milwaukee, my model still only has this one at 3.5, so I'm not going to lay 5.5. I guess Bucks team total over, maybe Hawks team total under, somewhere in there. Cleveland is on the road in Chicago. Not going to spend a ton of time on this one. The injury reports are a little weird. On the Cleveland side, Donovan Mitchell should be back. He's listed as probable, but Evan Mobley has been ruled out for this one. But more importantly, on the other side, there's just injury designations everywhere here. Still no Vucevic, still no Patrick Williams. Dosunmu's out for the year, so we'll take him out of the graphic after today. He's been ruled out for the year. Kevin Huerter's questionable. Kobe White's probable. Lonzo Ball's questionable. Josh Giddey is questionable. Who knows what to expect here from the Bulls? I mean, it's Chicago, one of the fastest-paced teams in the NBA, against Cleveland, a team that's always down to run a fast pace, scores a ton of points. So I would imagine Cleveland could probably score 140 here if they want. So I guess I'd lean towards an over or Cleveland team total over, but nah, I don't have a ton of interest here. Next, Philadelphia's on a back-to-back. They're on the road in Minnesota for this one. We got some injury question marks on the Sixers side. Kelly Oubre's been ruled out. Obviously no Embiid. Obviously no Eric Gordon. Kyle Lowry is still out. Paul George, who knows? He sat out tonight, so we'll see if he comes back. So yeah, Sixers definitely not at 100% here. On the Minnesota side, still no Rudy Gobert. Julius Randle listed as questionable. Other than that, Minnesota should be at full strength. So yeah, I mentioned how the Sixers are on a back-to-back on the season. They're 2-8 straight up, 4-6 against the spread on 0 days rest. I mean, that's pretty on point with the rest of their numbers though. So we can't say they've been worse on 0 days rest. We could say they've pretty much been just as bad on 0 days rest. I mean, honestly, it's tough to say positive things about the Sixers right now. In their last 10 games, this is before Portland, this graphic, they're 1-9 straight up, 1-9 against the spread. Pretty bad in every single aspect of the game. Defensive rating over 118, offensive rating down at 109, rebounding rate down to 46%. They're pretty much getting beat in every aspect of the game. Now you add on the fact that Tyrese Maxey is trying to learn how to shoot with 3 fingers. He's got a hand injury. He's struggling to shoot the outside shot. So like I said, not a ton of positive things to say about Philadelphia right now. I mean, not that Minnesota's been setting the world on fire or anything, but they have been pretty good at home recently. In their last 6 home games, they're 4-2 straight up, 5-1 against the spread. And as far as the matchup, the only thing Philadelphia's been doing well is turnovers. They've actually done a pretty good job protecting the basketball, and they've actually done a good job forcing turnovers. They're actually top 10 in both. But that's one of the strengths of Minnesota. So I don't even think the Sixers can win the turnover battle here, which is pretty much the only thing they're doing well. Now, am I in a hurry to lay 11.5 points with Minnesota? Of course not. But I do think the over is worth a look here. So Minnesota's been taking a lot of 3-point shots. In the last 10 games, they're 7th in 3-point frequency, 3rd in the last 5 games. So Minnesota's been launching threes. Not only is Philadelphia's defense terrible against the 3-point shot, and they have been all year, but check this out. When the Sixers play teams that shoot a lot of threes, Philadelphia this year, against teams in the top 5 of 3-point frequency, 9-2 to the over. So we always seem to see some points. Philadelphia's defense is terrible. They're injured on a back-to-back. I think Minnesota's going to put up a big number here. I bet the over at 221.5. I'm also not mad at a Minnesota team total over. Next.
So literally right after I recorded that, I went and bet the over at 221.5. Tyrese Maxey just left the game with an injury. So obviously if Maxey doesn't play, hurts my over. I'm letting it rock because I think we're going to see a fast-paced game. And like I said, I think Minnesota should score a lot. So I'm letting it rock. Expected Tyrese Maxey to be out there. Just wanted to update it. So I don't know the status of Tyrese Maxey. The injury just happened.
Brooklyn is on the road in San Antonio. Nets should be in pretty good shape for this one. You got Noah Clowney listed as questionable. I don't think he's going to return yet, but he is returning soon. Other than that, Nets actually in pretty good health. Not something we've said a lot this year. On the San Antonio side, obviously no Wembanyama. We have to take him off the graphic. Steph Castle on the injury report as well. He's listed as questionable. So let's get into this one, and it's going to be a real battle between Brooklyn's offense and the San Antonio defense because both of those units are awful. Someone's got to win between the Nets offense and the Spurs defense. I mean, now that Cam Thomas is back, I do expect Brooklyn's offense to be slightly better, but we saw him come back for one game, and it wasn't pretty. The Nets got beat by 20 points at home by Portland, so it didn't look good at all. They were bad on both sides of the floor, offensively and defensively. And San Antonio, as bad as they've been defensively, they've actually done a pretty good job against the 3-point shot. which is obviously what Cam Thomas likes to do. He takes a lot of jump shots. So I don't know how much Cam Thomas moves the needle for me in this particular matchup. Where San Antonio's defense has been bad has been on the interior since Wembanyama got hurt. I mean, they cannot protect the basket, but Brooklyn's been one of the most inefficient scoring offenses down low all year. So I don't know if the Nets are necessarily the offense that can take advantage of that. Now, on the other side of the floor, this is where I like the matchup for the Spurs. This is a San Antonio offense that likes to get out and run. They're sixth in transition frequency. Nets have been consistently one of the worst defenses in the NBA against the fast break. So San Antonio should have no problems getting out and running and scoring points in the fast break against this Nets defense. I personally have this one at 7. I see a 5 at -105. I'm going to take it. Give me the Spurs, -5. They got 2 full days off after this one, so no reason to let up. Spurs -5, next.
So I bet Spurs -5, but it's now down to 4, so the market's moving against me here. Obviously not something you like to see. I mean, I don't want to say I don't care. I disagree with the movement. I think San Antonio's the side, but seems to be sharp action coming in on the Brooklyn side. We'll see.
Clips are on the road in Phoenix. We got some injuries here on the Clippers side. Norman Powell tried to come back, played 9 minutes, re-injured his hamstring. Not sure how serious it is, but he's been ruled out for this one. No Ben Simmons. He's been ruled out. Same goes for Derrick Jones Jr. On the Suns side, it's just Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal on the report listed as questionable. So let's get into this one, and we'll start with the fact that the Suns have owned the Clips this year. 3-0 against the Clippers this year, 2-1 against the spread. So this would be a triple revenge spot for the Clips, for those playing the revenge game. Not really much of a revenge guy myself, but some people like that. Clippers looking to avoid the 0-4 sweep from the Suns this year. But let's talk about the matchup, and we'll start with the Suns defense, which the Suns defense has officially reached rock bottom, I'd say. They're dead last in defensive efficiency in the last 10 games. Defensive rating over 120 in that span, and the results have reflected that. They're 3-7 against the spread, 2-8 straight up in their last 10 games. So even though the Clippers have been having problems consistently scoring points, the Suns defense may be the perfect cure to that ailment. I mean, the Suns can't stop anybody right now. The Clips have had problems protecting the basketball. They're 20th in turnover rate in their last 10 games. Good news. Phoenix doesn't force any turnovers. They're dead last in forced turnover rate in their last 10. Also, this is a Clippers offense that's pretty decent in the fast break. 8th in transition frequency, 15th in efficiency. Nothing crazy, but this is a decent fast break offense. Suns are one of the worst transition defenses in the NBA. 28th in defensive efficiency in transition, 27th in points per game allowed via transition. So again, even though the Clippers offense has had its problems, even without Norman Powell, they should be able to score points here against a Suns defense that can't stop anybody. Now, where this one gets challenging is on the other side of the court, because this is a Clippers defense that keeps their opponents away from the rim. They force their opponents to take jump shots. That actually might be a good matchup for Phoenix because the Suns love taking jump shots. They love taking those long mid-range shots. They're first in frequency, first in efficiency, shooting those mid-range shots. They also take a lot of threes, and they've been a good three-point shooting team as well. Check this out. Clippers are 29th in defensive efficiency against the three-point shot in the last 10 games. So Clippers have really had problems locking down the three-point line, and the Suns have done a good job hitting the three-point shot. So I'm definitely leaning towards it. Well, I shouldn't say I'm leaning towards an over. I bet the over at 224.5. I'm a little worried about the pace. These aren't two of the most fast-paced teams, but I think both teams are really going to struggle to make stops. I also like the Clippers to win. I doubt the Clips are going to get 4-0 swept by the Suns, so I may take the Clippers as well. As of right now, I have an over 224.5 ticket at -105. Considering betting the Clippers, I'll let you know on the live show if I do it, or you can go to KyleKirms.com and click on open bets, then click on sauce and you can see. As of right now, I have my finger on the trigger with the Clippers. I'm on the over though. Next game. Pelicans are on the road in LA for this one. On the Pelicans side, they're actually in pretty good health in terms of their active pieces. Obviously, DeJounte Murray, Herb Jones, they're out for the year. But in terms of their active pieces, it's only Brandon Boston. He's on the report listed as questionable. On the Lakers side, we got a couple of key question marks here. Luka Doncic listed as questionable. Same goes for Austin Reeves. Still no Hachimura. I think he's coming back next week. And LeBron James is on the injury report. He's listed as probable. So let's get into this one. And we have to start out by giving the Pelicans some credit. They have played some better basketball as of late. But we got to keep in mind who they've played. I mean, they've played a really easy schedule the last handful of games. You got the Jazz, the Suns twice, the Spurs twice. So, okay, you're 4-1 in your last 5 games, but I'm not buying the Pelicans as any sort of threat. And if you look at who they've played in those last 5 games where they went 4-1, Spurs twice, Suns twice, Jazz, what do they all have in common? Defenses that don't force turnovers. Check this out. In the last 10 games, the Lakers are 7th in the NBA in forced turnover rate. The reason I'm bringing this up, New Orleans 4-16 against the spread against top 10 teams in forced turnovers. So they just played 5 games in a row against defenses that don't force turnovers. Now they're going to see a red-hot Lakers defense that is forcing turnovers. Don't like that at all for the Pelicans offense. Also, another thing I don't like for the Pelicans offense is this is an offense that runs a lot of pick and rolls. They're 6th in the NBA in pick and roll frequency. The Lakers have been the best defense in the NBA this year against the pick and roll. 1st in defensive efficiency against the pick and roll. So really, where are these points coming from? For New Orleans, I mean, this is an offense that wants to attack the basket. In the last 10 games, they're 1st in shot frequency in the paint. Good luck with that. In the last 10 games, the Lakers have been arguably the best interior defense in the league. They're 3rd in frequency, 3rd in efficiency, or something like that. Nobody's scoring on the Lakers down low. So, I mean, I love this matchup for the Lakers defense. This has been one of the hottest defenses in the NBA. Here's why I'm a little hesitant to lay the 7.5 right now. If everyone plays, as in Austin Reeves, Luka Doncic, LeBron, I mean, LeBron's probable. He's probably playing, but the other two are questionable. If they both play, I have this one close to 13. I have this Lakers minus 12.5, Lakers minus 13. So the fact that they're hanging 7.5s out there leads me to believe that maybe Luka and Austin Reeves aren't going to play in this game or aren't expected to play in this game. So what I actually did was I bet the Pelicans team total under 112.5. Like I said, this Lakers defense has made me a believer. They've been one of the best defenses in the NBA for multiple weeks now. So who am I to doubt this defense right now? Not to mention they match up pretty well against this Pelicans offense. So give me New Orleans team total under 112.5. Obviously, I lean towards the Lakers, but the injury question marks. I mean, if I knew both Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic were going to play, I'd be down to lay the 7.5. As of right now, I'm on Pelicans team total under. Live show, 4 p.m. Eastern time. I'll bring on some guests. We'll go through every single game on the board. I'll also go through the college basketball slate. It's a loaded college basketball slate. So we're able to make it 4 p.m. Eastern time. We'd love to see you in the comments. If you sign up to Sauce Network Plus, you can see every single bet I'm personally on, as well as everyone else on the staff here. So head over to KyleKirms.com and sign up if you like. Let's have ourselves a good Tuesday night. Please remember to bet responsibly. Later.